21 years old. I'm in perfect health. Boom. My body hit the floor so fast. My body hit the floor, and I don't even remember going down, but I did know I was 100% dead. And I could feel the doom of death, which had enveloped me entirely. And it was so frightening. I was like, oh my God, I was in a void. It was pure, pure black. You could hold your hand up and there was no hand in front of your face. That's how black it was. The blackness was everywhere.
My guest today is Teri Lynge-Kehl. Teri has had an amazing evolution of life experiences, a full gamut of high strangeness, enigmatic, and paranormal situations, as well as extraterrestrial interactions. Her alien experiences brought her personal knowledge and a passion to know more. Her devotion for understanding all this started in her 20s, and she confronted the panoply of interests about the experiences which were brought to her life. Once she overcame her fears, she grasped her life back and went boldly forward with a fervent zeal to learn more. Teri, thank you so much for joining me today. It is such a pleasure to have you as my guest and to be able to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you. It's really an honor to be here. So nice to meet you as well.
You as well, thank you. And so you've had just this whole plethora of amazing experiences. I'll kind of
Yeah.
let you start from the beginning, wherever you feel it makes sense to tell us, and let you go from there.
Okay. Well, yes, I had my near-death experience when I was in my 20s. So I was 21 when that happened. But the years that were before that were very difficult for me because I had a lot of what is in our universe, Um, it's so much to deal with, and people don't really realize it. I don't believe that we're ever taught by the church, by the school, even by our parents about what truly is going on in the world. And there are so many different levels of spiritual misunderstandings out there and what can happen to us. And what happened to me when I was 5, I actually saw a man standing in the sky, and I went to tell my parents, and they would not listen to me. They were Catholics. They didn't believe in that kind of thing, and they didn't want to uh, explore any of that with me. So, because they wouldn't listen to me, I ended up dealing with everything on my own. Every time I said I saw something, even when the I had angels who visited me, I would speak to my parents about this. And believe me, it wasn't because, something was wrong with me or I was retarded. I was just a little girl going to school, paying attention to everything around me. My parents, I love my parents. I was a good kid and never got into drugs and that kind of thing heavy. I tried a few things, when I was in my teens, but I wasn't one to go after alcohol or pills or any of that. So I look back on it all, and many of my friends didn't have these things happening to them. I'm not sure why, but I would ask people, do you see spirits or do you hear a voice speaking to you ever? And they would be like, no, and I don't know if they were lying because they didn't want to be honest, they didn't want to sound weird, or if, those things really truly had never happened to them. I don't know. But in the circle that I grew up around, um, people just didn't talk about anything. And I was very worldly, as a young child, but I was also very spiritual. I always um, dealt with the things that would happen to me. on a very spiritual level. I wasn't a Christian per se as a young girl. I was just somebody who grew up in the Catholic Church and believed that there was a God, and and that everybody knew that. I didn't know that we all thought things very separately and differently. I didn't know that we all had opinions, and I thought we were all being taught the same thing, and we were all learning the same thing, and we all understood the same things. That's what a child sees. And anyway, beyond all of that, uh, I was going through a divorce, and I was in a home talking to this man that I was considering leaving my husband for. And I know that sounds terrible, but I think we've all experienced times where we felt like we were in the wrong relationship and we needed to leave it, and it was just horrifying for us. And that's where I was. And so this young man that I knew from high school, and well, actually junior high school, had said he wanted me to, stay with him. And I went over to his house to discuss all of that. And while I was there was a knock on the door. And you understand that my life has been bizarre. I've heard things, I have seen things, and you need to understand that first, that was normalcy to me. That was normal. Other people didn't experience, demonic forces or angelic forces, or being able to hear the Lord when he spoke to me and that kind of thing, being waken up at night, dealing with odd entities. So this night was this culmination of all of that. And I was there in the house with the man's name was Edward and my husband's name was Richard. And all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and it was Richard coming, and he wanted to talk to Edward and I. And so he sat down and he said, we're both in love with you. Please make a choice. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You guys have been talking about this, and I didn't even know that you both knew about this. I was going to be the one, I thought, to reveal this. And um, I was being told that I needed to make a decision between the two of them, and of course, why not, right? I mean, that was the right thing to do. But it shocked me, that all of a sudden in that very moment, I was the one that didn't understand that all these things were happening. So I just thought to myself, gee, I'm not going to make a decision at all. And I got very angry, and I turned around to put my hand on the door to leave. And I literally said to both Edward and Richard, I'm not going to choose either one of you. I think that none of this is going to work. And I was very angry. And I turned around, put my hand on the door, and there was a third voice in the room. It was not Edward's. It was not Richard's. And I thought, who is that speaking to me? And he said, that is not the only decision that you have to make. And I thought to myself, you've got to be kidding me. Who is that talking to me? Who is that? Edward's father? Is he in the house? I mean, it went through my mind in a flash. Who is that? Very powerful voice, beautiful voice, actually, very powerful. And I thought, well, so I turned around with my little attitude, ready to tell somebody to, you know, and to my shock, absolute shock, I saw the Lord standing there. Of course, I didn't know it was the Lord. I'd seen many spirits. I'm thinking there was a spirit standing there, right between them, and neither one of them were moving, which was very odd because they had asked me to make a decision. I was getting ready to leave, and now they're not even interacting with me, but they're staring at me almost like they're in freeze frame. And this voice and this man standing between them is looking right at me. And I looked at him and I thought, wow, you are beyond beautiful. You are beyond gorgeous. I mean, I'll take you. It was like, you know, like a young girl would, right? I mean, when we're young, we're kind of flirty. I mean, I think we all were. And so I was kind of flirty with him. Well, that didn't bode well for me because I got an instant rebuke. and my head went back very hard. I mean, my head almost flew off my shoulders. I was literally lusting after the spirit of God in his beauty and in his perfection. And believe me, who wouldn't? And and then I said, when my head finally came back, it was like, wow, it was almost like I got slapped almost, but it was much stronger than that. He was letting me know, wrong time. This isn't where you're going. And so I realized that. And I said, who are you? The Lord? You know, I mean, because who had that kind of power? I'd never met a spirit that had power to actually smack my head back almost off my shoulders. And I knew I was dealing with a very high level power. And so as I stood there looking at him, I noticed that in the entire room, there was not even one shadow, not one. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. There is not a shadow in the room. And as you can see behind me, there's shadows everywhere. And I'm sure there's shadows where you're sitting. They were everywhere, always. But when he was there, I noticed, my goodness, the whole room is engulfed in this glorious light. And it's so clear, but it made me feel dirty. I was just feeling so strange. And he came right up to me and got this close to me, looking into my eyes. And I'm looking into these eyes that were more powerful than anything I had ever laid my eyes on in this lifetime. And he said to me, I am the Alpha and the Omega, your resurrection. And I was like, what? And I literally said this out loud. And here's something to remember. These two, Edward and Richard, still had not moved. They were in total freeze frame. And I said, I, and then I mocked him and laughed and said, 21 years old, I'm in perfect health. Boom. My body hit the floor so fast. My body hit the floor, and I don't even remember going down. But I did know I was 100% dead. And I could feel the doom of death, which had enveloped me entirely. And it was so frightening. I was like, oh my God, I was in a void. It was pure, pure black. You could hold your hand up and there was no hand in front of your face. That's how black it was. The blackness was everywhere. There was not a speck of light. Okay. And I'm just laying there and I'm thinking to myself, am I laying? Am I standing? What? I can't see me. And I said, I can feel my hand when I do this. And then I went, but where's my hand? So I held my hand up and I could not see it. And I'm like, I know my hand is there, but I can't see it because in death, you are no longer, your spirit is removed from your body. The body dies on one plane, but the spirit also goes somewhere else. The body is on the floor at Edward's home between Edward and Richard, but now the spirit had left that body. I was no longer there in that room with them. I was in a void and I was cut off. And the feelings of loneliness, fear, nothingness, not being able to understand what had happened. I wasn't thinking about Richard or Edward. That was like years away from my mind. And there I was experiencing this moment fully on the spiritual realm. And as I laid there, I started screaming. I was so afraid. I knew that I was separated from God. This was the only thing that I knew for sure. My spirit acknowledged my separation from a holy God. And it was so frightening. I started screaming out loud, help me, help me. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. And if I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. And our spirits do have a voice. And I was screaming with this spiritual voice to God that I wanted to live. And yet there was no hope coming to me. The blackness that surrounded me had so enveloped me that I felt like my voice was coming right back to my own face and it wasn't getting anywhere. And I'm like, how can that be? I know there's got to be somebody listening. Is there anybody listening? And I kept thinking, there is no one listening right now. I'm alone. I'm totally alone. And death has stalked me to this place. It had just gripped me. And as I laid there, I started to think, this is hopeless. No one can hear me. I don't understand this. This is death. This is death. This is what we all have lived our entire lives for, to come to this point. This is death without God. And I knew I was no Christian. I knew I wasn't a good girl, being that I was caught in adultery, and that I was considering leaving my husband. I wasn't a good person. And I understood that. And I was just, where do you go from here? And I felt like I was laying down on the ground. And all of a sudden, at the very back of my head, I heard a crack, like as if you were breaking an egg almost, like you could hear it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm coming apart. Whatever happens in death, now I'm going further deeper into it. And my life is over on the earth. That earth realm is done. And this is what I've gained. And the crack started, and I thought, I guess everything's going to leak out of me now. I didn't know what to think, but it scared me. And I just laid very quiet. And the crack was like, and it went all the way slowly, by the way, very torturously, slowly down my back, down my sciatic, down my leg, keep going down to the ankle. And then it kept down to the very tip of my toe as I laid there. And I thought, oh, I guess this is the coming apart. This is where I cease to exist. And I kept waiting for the next torturous moment. And I just laid there. And, uh, you know, being there is so frightening. And all of a sudden, I remember thinking, I want to live. It was like my last thing before whatever was going to happen now was going to happen, because you don't know what's going to happen. You're totally lost. And the next thing I know, I'm standing straight up, and Edward and Richard are there, and their eyes are this big. And I screamed this guttural scream. It was just, ah. And I screamed for so long, all the breath came out of me. It was like I was being unpossessed by what had possessed me and gotten me to that moment. It was like he had pulled it out of me. He had broken me and yanked all these spirits that obviously had come into me through my lifetime. He pulled them all out of me, and I was just screaming. That breath of life and all the filth that was in me was coming now out. And then when I stopped screaming, I shook my head and put my hands on my face, and I said, who screamed? And for the first time, Richard and Ed said at the exact same time, You did. And I'm like, what? That was me. And I was in denial. And there still stood the Lord right between them. And they went right back into freeze frame. And I'm like, what is going on? This is like, what is going on? And he started talking to me, and they just sat there. And as he was coming back towards me again, he started telling me that I was his chosen child. And I said, chosen? And I'm still being smarmy, which I can't even fathom. I can't fathom the fact that I was being so smarmy. What kind of an idiot would do that? Me. And so I'm like, chosen. Chosen for what? And he didn't answer me, but his hands came out like this towards me, and my hands were just by my side. And I reached out, and something went into my hands. I couldn't see that with my human eyes, but it kept coming and kept coming, almost like he was forcing it. And I was like, and oh my gosh, it came on me, and I felt cloaked. I felt this heavy, felt like drapery. I mean, heavy velour like drapery on my shoulders. And it was so heavy. And I was just standing there, and it had so much power in it. And I thought, what is this? And then I felt something on my head, and it was very heavy. And I'm like, what is that? What the heck is on my head? And I couldn't see a thing, but I felt like it was some form of a crown. And I'm like, what? What? And then I felt clean. This clean came over me that was beyond literally words. I can't explain it to you other than it was otherworldly. It was from the spiritual realm, and there are no words other than pure, white, and clean. I have searched my own soul. I've searched the dictionary for words that could have illuminated what I was feeling, and I can't find anything. It was truly otherworldly. And the power that was on me at that moment. And I looked at Edward, and I looked at Richard, and oh, I was seeing in a spiritual realm, and I saw two completely dead men, dead. Death had consumed them. And now I saw it. My eyes had been unveiled. I could see in the spirit. I could see the Lord now in a way that I can't wait to see again. There are no words to describe what I saw. The beauty, the glory, the power, the holiness and the righteousness. And I felt so good standing there. And then all of a sudden, it was like I remembered who I was. And I put my hands up and I said, don't look at me. I'm so filthy. I'm so sorry. I'm so filthy. And his eyes, they were so powerful. His eyes moved my hands away. And I knew I had been forgiven, but I didn't know how I had been forgiven. And there I am in the midst of that moment with him. And he spoke many things to me, but I couldn't understand them that day. They didn't make sense. He was giving me some form of a spiritual data dump, and I knew that it was for me. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And now I was completely submitted to his authority. I'd never been submitted to him before, never. And I was completely submitted to his authority. And I said to him, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to stay with Edward? Do you want me to stay with Richard? I'll do whatever you want. And he backed up and stood next to Richard. And I said, okay. And which that was the right thing to do. I was married. And I'm like, okay. And by the way, he quoted scripture to me, which I had never heard before. But later on, after this, he brought me to a place where I immediately got a Bible, immediately went to church, immediately got involved. And my life for the next 10 to 12 years was just with him, and the miracles that I experienced, the things that I walked through with him were absolutely profound. And people who knew me were like, is she for real? You know, and I wasn't judgmental. I didn't have a spirit of religion or thinking I was better than anybody. I knew I wasn't. And I was incredibly humble and always going back to that, you know. And I now know what I was chosen for. I was chosen to share this truth that he is who he says he is. And people out there need to pay attention to that because we are in a very dark time in America. And we have, America has been sold literally. And we may not be a superpower any longer. I don't know what the Lord is going to do in the future. I'm not a prophet. I don't know what's going on in the future, but I can see what I see. And we're in trouble here, you know, and there are other powers that be, and the spiritual realm is just attacking all of those who have faith in God and who walk with God, you know, and so um, I can't shout that loud enough, you know.
Yeah. But the scriptures that he read to you or he said to you, do you remember what they were?
I remember some of them. He told me that I had to be born again, and I was like, born again, you know, and I thought it's impossible to crawl back into my mother. Ooh, you know, how disgusting. And I just thought, what are you talking about, born again? And he quoted that scripture, and I didn't realize that it even was scripture. As a matter of fact, I thought it was really sick, you know, born again. And so then I did, you know, follow through. I once I saw it in the scriptures, I said, where do I go? How do I do it? You know, I ran to a church. A friend of mine took me to the church. And another thing that happened that night was a friend um, had said to me, uh, you know, what happened to you, Teri? And I said, I saw the Lord. I said, I can't believe that, you know, it took me 21 years of my life. I've wasted 21 years. I laugh now because I was so young, you know, and I was like so upset because I had thought that, um, I was so old. And, you know, I'm 72 today, and that was 21 years old. That is crazy to me. And so he's said to me, Teri, you don't see the Lord. And I said, excuse me, Dean, I saw the Lord. I mean, I was just with him. I spent and it lasted almost 2 hours, by the way. I've spent 2 hours with him. And I said, what are you talking about? You're a Christian. Didn't you see him? How did you get born again? You know, or how did you get saved? And he said, well, not like that. He said, I just read the Bible and I believed it and I got baptized. And I said, baptized. He mentioned the baptism, and I'm going to get baptized. How do I get baptized? So Dean took me to where he was going to church. And when they heard my testimony, they put me right on the Christian radio network. And I shared with everybody at the time and what had happened and what the Lord said. And, you know, I did share that scripture about being born again. And that's very important, you know, because he told me that the kingdom of heaven was within. It's not someplace I'm going or I'm going to attain it. I already have it. And I have it all. And he also told me that I must be born again of his spirit. And I'm like, spirit, what? You know, and until then, the only spiritual things I had happen were pretty negative and frightening. And so I was learning now to unlearn what I had been taught. What I had been taught was not truth. It was not truth. Even though I was going to church, I wasn't being taught truth in church. And I wasn't being taught any truth at school. And I wasn't being taught truth by my parents. I was being taught what they had been taught, and they were misinformed. So I can't blame them. They didn't have the knowledge to train me. So God was giving me the knowledge now to train my children and to share. And so I was on the worship team immediately. I started singing because I've always sang, and I used to sing when I was 17 and 18. I spent my 18th and 19th year and 20th, some of my 20th in New York singing professionally and making a lot of money. So, I thought, okay, I'll get on the worship team, and that's what I did, and Richard and I had two children, and I raised them both to be Christians. Um, and I did eventually leave Richard, because I never did love him. And I really got down on my knees and prayed and said, Lord, I made a terrible mistake. I was young. I wasn't a Christian. I married this guy for all the wrong reasons. And I felt like the Lord was saying to me, getting a divorce is it's not a salvation issue. But we don't want to make a practice of that. And he does allow for some divorces, but he also asks many of us to persevere in our marriages, but I told him that I couldn't, I could not persevere. And so I did end up getting a divorce. And I want to say that because I don't ever want anybody to think I was some goody two shoes, that was all good and I did everything right because I had seen the Lord. I was a sinner just like everybody else. I kept doing things that were probably wrong because I was young in my Christianity and I didn't understand what I was doing. I was being retaught how to live, retaught how to think, retaught. And a lot of times people judge Christians because, they're not they're not who they say they are. They're not walking the walk, they're just talking the talk. But be forgiving because we're all walking each other home and we are all a work in progress and none of us have arrived. And the kingdom of heaven is within us and we have to go within to seek that. And most of us are so caught up in the world and our cell phones and our tablets and our own personal lives and our relationships and our work that we kind of leave Jesus on the side, and that is not what he calls us to do. And so, after having had that experience, I was 100% going in a different direction than where I had been going. And like I said earlier, that was 21. I'm 72 now, and I am still learning. I'm still coming to understand the vastness of the spiritual realm that is here with us. And even churches today are totally asleep in the light. They don't get it. They don't understand it. They want to just stay within the confines of the Bible, but even the Bible has things that are very deep. And that spiritual realm and how we came to be and who we are in Christ is mind-boggling. And so I almost don't like the term Christian. I like to say that I am a spiritual being on a human journey. And I am walking through this life and I am willing to share with anybody out there who will listen and sit with me. I'd love to have coffee with anybody and just sit and tell them because my time here, I'm in the fourth quarter, okay? I won't be here forever. And I do, while I'm here, want to tell the whole truth about what has happened. And the demonic realm is very real. Being possessed here is very real, more real than people come to understand. A lot of people go, oh, I don't believe in Satan. Well, good for you. Doesn't mean that that's not true. You know what I'm saying? There are realms out there that have been here for eons. And there are also other realms that were here before the realms are that we are in. In other words, Anunnaki, is all of that true? Those false gods, are all of that true? Absolutely. It is. But when people look at me, they're like, the Christians, oh, you're a spiritualist. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm open to truth, 100% truth. Don't give me your theologies, your doctrines, your thinking. Please don't bore me with that. I want to talk about what is true and what really is happening in the lives of all of us here.
You've had some other experiences as well with extraterrestrials, or do you call them,
Yes, I have.
prefer to call them aliens or extraterrestrials, or
Well, they are both. They are alien and they are extraterrestrial. They are not from here. Many of them are from another dimension, and that dimension is very, very real. And, we have the Nephilim that are still here, still here. People think the Nephilim aren't here. I don't know. Are you aware of Nephilim?
yes.
Okay. And I didn't know if what you understood, so I didn't know.
Oh,
Um,
we I would love for you to elaborate as much as you see fit.
Okay. Well, the Nephilim are very real. And who are the Nephilim? Just for those watching that might not understand, I'm pretty sure you do. I'll give you a quick, Nephilim 101. The fallen angels, which God sent here, Lucifer, who then became Satan, came here. They were the watchers, and they came and they looked at the women that were being born from the pre-Adamic races as well as Adam and Eve. And there are pre-Adamic races because when Cain slew Abel, uh, he went to a place called Nod. Well, if he went to a place called Nod and there were people there, and Adam and Eve were the only two on the planet, who was in Nod? Because they were the pre-Adamics, okay? And so when the angels were here, they were having sex with not just the pre-Adamics, but the daughters of Eve because they wanted to change that DNA. They don't care for us. They don't like us. As a matter of fact, they hate us. And they don't like the fact that we are spiritual beings and we will live eternally. They will not live eternally with God. We were created in God's image. So they came down and many of the women and even took them as wives, but some. And even today, women will tell people like that are in counseling with people that have had extraterrestrial and Nephilim experiences that they have with these demonic forces. And they think it's the aliens. It's not the aliens. It's the Nephilim that are still here. And so they are having demons in that sleep realm, not aliens. Aliens don't have the wherewithal to have sex with us, by the way. So let's separate the truth. Extraterrestrials do not have the wherewithal. They are not created in the image of us. The angels were, and we are. But we are created triune, and the angels were not. They did not have bodies. The ones that fell took on the forms. They are shapeshifters. They are the watchers. They are wicked. They don't love us. They don't care for us. They're using us for their own purposes to change the DNA, which they have done. Okay, very successfully. The Rothschilds and well, let me not go into all that. That's too political. But anyway, they're here and they're controlling the realms, and they have tricked and manipulated so many away from God. And this is why we have this clash between good and evil, because evil is trying to reign and ultimately knows its days are numbered. We win, good wins in the end. So all of you hearing, please come to this side of the fence because that side of the fence is not going to make it. So knowing that, The Nephilim came down and had sex with the women. The women gave birth to giants, literally. And the giants became uh, wicked, evil, and they were out to kill, which is why David slew Goliath. Uh, they were very negative. They were hateful. They were, you never really hear about, oh, the giants were amazing, wonderful. They were strong, very strong. And I believe that yeah, they are still here. You know, we still have giants, or what is his name? Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah. And I mean, there's tons. I mean, he's just one that's here and we all know us. So I'm not picking on him or anything. I'm just using it as a fact. Um, but they're still here. Giantism is still here, and giantism comes from that half angelic being mating with the human woman and creating that Nephilim. So the giant. And that wickedness is still amongst us. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Shaquille O'Neal is wicked, okay? I am not saying that. I'm saying that the spirit that controls those things are the wicked. Now, once a person is born, and we're many generations down the line, giants can become Christians. They can be wonderful people. They can be spiritually inept, but there is a process. It doesn't matter who you are. You've got to be born again. If you aren't born again, you can't even see the kingdom. You can't even understand the kingdom. So no matter where you're coming from, if you're coming from the seed of a Nephilim, if you're coming from the seed of Adam and Eve, if you're coming from the seed of pre-Adamics, everybody can get saved, can come to God. But we have the mediator, who is Yeshua, and we've got to come to him, be born again, and then otherwise we can't even see it. Our eyes are veiled over. And well, anyway, I hope I explained that portion of that. But there are really very strong demonic realms too from the fallen angels. They take on and shapeshift, and very real. I've seen it. I have seen many. I've seen them take full-bodied apparitions, which shocked me. And I asked the Lord, why are you letting me see extraterrestrials, demons, full-bodied apparitions, dead people? I see the dead. I'm like, why are you showing me these? Come on. I'm not a soothsayer. I'm not a psychic. I'm not any of that. I'm yours. Why are you showing me this? And he said, Teri, there is so much that you don't understand. And I said, okay, got that. I'm not the brightest star in the sky and I don't know everything, but why? Why me? And then he reminded me, you're chosen. I have chosen you to speak. And he's given me such a powerful connection to do that. A lot of people would, especially females, would go, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything about that. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to ruffle any feathers, especially in the church. Not me. I am bold. He gave me such a holy boldness. I almost like to slap my face sometimes and say, shut up. But, he won't let me. He chose me for this. So this is why I speak out now. And he also told me that there would be a time to speak out. And I didn't speak out as much when I was younger because it wasn't the time. But one day, this is such a beautiful thing to share. One day, I think I was 60 years old, and I was in Florida. And I woke up one day sitting there with my coffee, and I heard in my right ear, you're older now. And I went, yeah, no kidding. I'm 60. I'm older. Hello. You didn't have to tell me that. Yeah, I could see the lines on my face, you know. And then I thought about it. I'm like, that's all I heard. And then I remembered when I was 21 and he told me, when you're older. And I'm like, Oh my gosh. It took all these years from 21 to 60. And now I'm older. He came and told me, you're older now. I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden, my ability to share and that holy boldness just blurted out of me. It was like crazy. Like I couldn't shut up and I couldn't stop. And here I am, you know.
He stayed with you and has guided you through your entire life since you were 21.
Yes. Well, he was even there before that, but he hadn't made himself known. He made himself known to me when I was 21.
What
Mhm.
kind of experiences did you have with the extraterrestrials? Did they talk to you, take you on their spaceship? What happened?
Yes, the first one is when it all happened, and this is very interesting, and I'll try to go fast, so I'll cut a lot of it out because it's very elongated. Okay, but I'm coming home from work late one night, and there's a craft hovered over the railroad track that was near my neighborhood, and I was getting made ready to make a left, and I'm coming down 28th Street North in St. Petersburg, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, that's not a train on that track. I'm like, what the heck is that? You know, and I was a Christian. This was 1979. I got saved in 1973. And so I'm looking at it going, Lord, you got to be kidding me. What the heck is that? That is not a train. And I'm holding onto the steering wheel of my little Honda Civic going down the street, and all of a sudden the Honda shuts off, and I'm like, "What? My car just died." I'm like, "What?" And I'm rolling towards this craft, and I'm about 180 feet away from it, just under 200 feet, and my car stops, and I'm sitting there looking at this craft, going, "Oh man, that thing is beautiful." I'm like, and I'm talking to the Lord. What the heck is that? Is that a UFO? Are you kidding me? I said, you know, I don't believe this. Are you kidding me? And I kept saying that. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I have a relationship with him like I would have with you. I love that. I mean, he and I are like buds, you know, but he's my God, trust me. I mean, I also worship him and honor him. But and I'm saying to him, this is comic book entertainment. This is not real. This can't be real. Come on, you got to be kidding me. This cannot be real. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm staring at this thing and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, man, that thing is gorgeous. That thing is beautiful. That's like nothing I have ever seen before. And I'm looking for rivets like you would see on a train. I'm looking for doors that would slide or something. Nothing. And there's this blue light going around the center of it that is absolutely stunning. And in 1979, we didn't have fiber optics. So there was nothing like that for me to, you know. And again, I said to the Lord, what the heck? And he said to me, Teri, there is so much you do not understand. He tells me that all the time. I'm like, am I ever going to get it? You know, but so as I'm looking at this, I actually I actually felt like it was almost alive, like it was a biological thing, like it. And I wasn't afraid, but I remember saying, "Whatever you do, Teri, don't get out of the car. Just stay in the car." And the next thing you know, my hand is on the doorknob, and I'm opening the car door, and I'm like, "I said, don't do that. What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Lord, what am I doing?" And I grasped the door jamb of the Civic, and I'm looking now, and this thing is. I'm like, "Wow." It's like looking into the Grand Canyon. I mean, there is nothing that compares to what I was seeing. It was gorgeous. And and I'm like, oh my God. The next thing you know, and I don't know how this happened, I was in front of the car. And I'm like, wait, when did I let go of the door? What? And I'm just standing there going, are you kidding me, Lord? What is going on? And I'm staring at this thing, and I don't know how long I stared at it. And then all of a sudden, this huge blue light, just like the one going around the center of that craft, came at me. And I looked over at it. And next to this railroad track where this one was hovered over the railroad track, there was one that had landed, a craft had landed. So there were two crafts. And now I'm looking over there, and out of the blue light of that craft came a tall white extraterrestrial. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I said out loud, oh my God, that thing is so ugly. That is so freaking ugly. And I am not looking over there. I'm not looking at it. I will not acknowledge that. And, I'm alone in the middle of the street. My car is stopped. It's 2:30 in the morning. I forgot to say that. And, I'm standing there on the pavement, and I'm like, I am not looking at that. And then I look down and I'm like, what? I'm a good 2 to 3 feet off of the pavement. And I'm like, what? And I'm seeing that my feet, I had my sandals on, these little beige sandals, and I could not believe that I was not standing on the pavement. And I'm like, okay, this is just bizarre. And the next thing you know, I'm going off in that direction. I'm like, no, 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 no. And he was so ugly. And to describe him, he was like pure white. And if you've ever put your finger up to a, a flashlight, you can see right straight through it. I could see right straight through him. That blue light was coming right straight through him. And I thought, oh my God, he's so ugly. First, he was to my left in my peripheral view. Now he turned me, and I'm like, why am I going through this? Why are you allowing this? And I remember saying, nothing can happen to me that you do not allow. You've allowed this, so there's a reason that you've allowed this. Why would you allow this? And he didn't answer me. And the next thing you know, I I got too close to that extraterrestrial, scared the bejesus out of me, and I fainted. I went right out. I don't remember anything. The next thing I remember is I'm in the other craft, and I'm in this room, and I'm laid back, and I open my eyes, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, oh. And I immediately look down and I see I still have my work uniform on. I still have my little beige sandals on my shoes on my feet. And I'm like, oh God, thank God, where am I? What's going on here? And you can't comprehend or wrap your mind around a moment like that. It doesn't happen, okay? You don't come to a place where understanding happens. You are beyond the realm of wrapping your head around it. And so as I was there, I'm looking around, and the walls are light. They're like this white soft glow. The ceiling is like a white soft glow. The floor is like a white soft glow. I'm like in this white bubble. And we didn't have, in 1979, we didn't have white soft glow bulbs. We either had these really repulsive bright bulbs that always kind of had a yellowish tint to them. I never saw a soft white glow. Okay. So when I was trying to, like I said, wrap my mind around it, I couldn't understand what could make this kind of a glow. And everything was kind of like in a suck down. In other words, everything was one piece. Nothing was separate. And then the thought came to me as I'm laying there. I pulled my head up and looked down, and I was like, oh my God, there were these two great extraterrestrials. Now, I didn't know they were called extraterrestrials at that time. I didn't have that capacity to understand at the time. And one had his hand near my left ankle, which scared the heck out of me. I'm like, what the heck is that thing? But they weren't as ugly or as crazy as that tall white thing, but they still were ugly, short, and grayish, nasty looking. And I thought, oh my God, this is so disgusting. Because it's just me. I'm just like, I'm a clean freak kind of a person. And it just anything that's weird disgusts me. And then I thought, where's that white thing? And boom, the minute I said that, he was right there. And I looked up and I'm like, oh, I looked right into those eyes of that extraterrestrial. And I thought, oh my God, he's so ugly. And his eyes had an emptiness to them, a weirdness to them. And it was very frightening. And he spoke to me, but he didn't have a mouth. He had no nose. He had no ears. He had no clothes on. He was just this white entity, very tall, thin, big head, big eyes. And I'd never heard of them before that day because I was a Christian. I mean, I was in church 3, 4 times a week. I was in the worship team, raising my kids, teaching the children in the Sunday schools. Extraterrestrials, no, I didn't understand anything about them. Hadn't read about them, didn't get involved with them. And because I didn't believe in them, I thought it was comic book entertainment. I really did. And so there they were. And I'm like, well, okay, nothing can happen to me that the Lord doesn't allow me to go through. So obviously I need to know about this. Why would you want me to know about this thing? And there it is. And he says to me, this thing, we will not harm you. We will not take you. And I said, take me? Take me where? What the heck? What is all this about? And the next thing I know, I'm out again. Now, the next thing I remember is standing in front of my Honda Civic again. And I'm like, what? 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 You know, and all you can do literally, I swear to God, is shake your head. You're like, Lord, come on, you gotta be kidding me here. And then this thing is hovered. Now I'm looking at this one. I have absolutely no recollection of this one for some reason. It leaves my thoughts, which is weird because it's another entity. And I do believe that they have some power, these things, to blot us out and cause these things to happen. And so I'm standing there now looking at the original one I saw. I'm back, I think, on the tarmac, on the, asphalt, and I'm just staring at it. But I'm not the same girl that went into that craft. And I'm like, now all of a sudden I'm screaming, don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Take me with you. I can't stand it. I hate it here. And I'm begging them to take me. And I said to myself, shut up. What are you saying? I'm like, shut up. Why would you say that? You don't even know who they are. But somehow I had a data dump in that other craft where I knew they knew something beyond what I knew. They must have told me and given me an insight about who they were and what was really going on this planet, because my whole mind had been expanded. And yet I don't understand how. And so here I am going through this conundrum of, you know, what's going on. And all of a sudden this thing is like this and it goes, and I mean, it did it so fast. It was like between the blinks and I couldn't believe it. And then I don't know how long I stood there looking at it in this vertical. It shot up and came to a dead stop. And I'm like, whoa, what more crazy could happen tonight? I can't take this. You got to be kidding me, Lord. What more could possibly happen? This is so bizarre. It's beyond the bizarre. And then I'm just sitting there watching it. And all of a sudden, a fireball comes out of the bottom of this craft and it's there. And I can hear it. I can hear the fire like you're watching fire in a, in a furnace. I can hear it crackling and popping. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't tell me it's going to come down and burn me alive or something, and I'm like, oh God. And then I knew once I said that it wouldn't happen like that. But anyway, to finish that up, they both sped off at the same time at an unbelievable rate of speed. And so that was my first experience. I've had more and different types. I've had reptilian interactions. And I'm sure we don't have time to go into all that. We'll have to do that another time. But, extraterrestrials are real. And they understand the demonic realm very, very well. I do believe that they are hybridizations of some of the demonic realms and some of the Nephilim realms, and yet themselves. And so Bigfoot, Yeti, Wolfman, Mothman, these different things. Yes, we live in a very, very strange world that as we ask, seek, and knock, as we do, the Lord unveils so much to us, and everything has been perverted here. This is not a place where things are right. It will be once we leave this realm and we go to the next realm. You know, we are spiritual beings on a human journey, and we will leave. None of us are getting out alive. We are all going to separate from the body, and our spirit will go on. The body does not go on. However, the spirit looks identical to the body. The spirit is within us. I've had out of body experiences where I've seen my own body on the bed, and I've been with the Lord, and I've, been out with angels away from my body and had many experiences that way. So I can tell you that when I'm in heaven, you'll know me as what you see, and I'll know you as what I see, because your spirit is a perfect, it's almost like a doppelganger. Doppelganger. They're the same exact thing, not that it's a doppelganger, but it's the same.
Wow, you've had so many incredible experiences, and the I've never heard a story like your, well, like any of it really, but um it's fascinating, and we might have to have you on again to share some more about some other experiences you've had and some other
Oh,
information that you have about other beings that live here on Earth with us. That could be very helpful to some as well. And
mhm.
do you have any last words of wisdom for my viewers?
Well, I will just say, please stay open to the truth. Please know that God is who he says he is. And we are dealing with many different dimensions here on this planet, 12 different dimensions. And the fact that we're only using a very small portion of our minds, we need to stay open. So, really, I guess that would be it. I just hope that people will know that I know that I'll give an account for every single word that I speak now and in my body until I pass. And I take that very seriously. What I'm sharing is truth. It's been my life experiences, and they are many. And they are because God wants me to tell this story about where we really are and who we really are. And thanks for having me. Yeah,
Thank you again for sharing your story. You were called to share it. You were given this story as a gift, not only to yourself, but I believe these are gifts to humankind, to the entire planet. And I feel like they're happening more often. And we're going through a transition, and
we
you're
are.
a part of that. And by sharing your story, you are just such an incredibly huge piece of that transition.
Well,
And
thank you.
thank you. And if my viewers wanted to reach out to you if they have questions, do you have any resources available, and how can they find you?
Well, I had an alien healing in 2012, and I do have a book that I've taken off of Amazon while I'm updating it. I obtained a swab with DNA, extraterrestrial DNA, and it was very interesting. So I would like to, just say my book will be back up on Amazon. It's called An Alien Healing, the true story of a benevolent extraterrestrial, and it was a healing by a reptilian, actually. So, yeah,
Thank you so much. And I wish the very best for you and all that you do.
you too, you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.